The ship came down through the clouds like a falling star. It made no sound. It left no trail of fire behind it. One moment the sky was empty, and the next moment there was something there that did not belong. Vel stood at the observation window and watched the blue planet grow larger. He had done this many times before. His species had traveled between stars for 10,000 years, and in that time they had found more than 40,000 different worlds with life. Some had simple creatures. Some had intelligent beings. All of them followed the same patterns. All of them were easy to understand. This world would be no different. Surface scans are complete, said from his station. One dominant species. They call themselves humans. Technology level is primitive. They have not yet achieved faster than light travel. They have basic nuclear capability and limited space exploration. Vel nodded slowly. This was common. Most species reached this stage and then destroyed themselves. The ones that survived usually took another 1,000 years to reach the stars. By then, the Galactic Union would be ready to welcome them or conquer them, depending on what seemed best. What about their communication signals? Vel asked. Made a gesture that meant confusion. There are many signals, too many. They broadcast constantly. Radio waves, satellite transmissions, something they call the internet. I have never seen a species produce so much noise. Noise is not dangerous, Vel said. Continue with standard landing protocol. We will observe them directly. The oldest member of the crew looked up from her research console. She was the historian, the one who studied new species and determined their value to the Union. Her eyes were tired, but her mind was sharp. I have begun preliminary analysis of their historical records, she said. They are unusual. Unusual how? Did not answer immediately. She turned back to her screen and continued reading. Vel did not press her, always took her time, and she was rarely wrong about anything. The ship descended toward a small peninsula on the eastern edge of a large continent. The humans called this place Korea. It seemed quiet. There were mountains and forests and small villages surrounded by fields of green plants, a good place to land without causing panic. On the ground below, in a village that had existed for 300 years, an old man named Han was already awake. He had been awake for an hour, as he always was before sunrise. His body did not let him sleep late anymore. Too many years of waking early had trained him, and now rest came in small amounts. He walked through his rice field with slow, careful steps. The water was cool against his feet. The sky was growing lighter in the east, and the birds were beginning to sing. It would be a good day for farming. Then the birds stopped singing. Han looked up. He had lived through many strange things in his 72 years. He had been a soldier once, a long time ago. He had seen things that most people only read about in books. He had learned that the world was full of surprises, and that the best way to survive them was to stay calm. So when he saw the ship descending from the sky, silent and silver and impossibly large, he did not run. He did not scream. He simply stood in his field and watched it come down. The ship landed in the empty field next to his property. It crushed the grass flat beneath it, but it did not sink into the soft earth. It simply sat there, waiting. Han waited too. In the village behind him, people were waking up. He could hear distant voices, confused and frightened. Soon there would be chaos. Soon the army would come, and the government, and the news reporters. Soon this quiet place would become the center of the world. But for now, in this moment, there was only him and the ship. A door opened in the side of the vessel. Light spilled out, white and clean. A figure appeared in the doorway. Han had expected something strange. He had seen movies about aliens when he was younger. He had imagined creatures with many eyes or no eyes at all, with scales or tentacles or shapes that made no sense. But the being that stepped out of the ship was almost disappointing in its simplicity. It was tall and thin, with gray skin that looked smooth like stone. It had 2 arms and 2 legs like a human. Its face had eyes and a mouth, though they were positioned differently. It wore something that might have been clothing or might have been part of its body. Han could not tell. The creature looked at him. Han looked back. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Han raised his hand. It was the gesture humans used to greet strangers. "Hello, I see you. I mean no harm." The creature tilted its head to one side. It made no gesture in return. Vel stood at the bottom of the ramp and studied the first human he had ever seen in person. The creature was small and wrinkled, covered in loose fabric. Its body showed signs of advanced age and physical damage. There were scars on its hands and a slight bend in its spine. By any reasonable measure, it should have been afraid. It should have been running away or calling for help. Instead, it just stood there in the water, completely calm, with one hand raised in what the translation database identified as a greeting. Vel recorded the observation in his mind. First subject displays no fear response, possible low intelligence, or possible damage to survival instincts. The local population is becoming aware of our presence, reported through the communication link. Multiple electronic signals are being transmitted. Visual recording devices are being activated. Military forces are being mobilized from several locations. Expected, Vel said. We will remain here and allow them to come to us. Standard first contact procedure. He looked at the old human again. The creature had lowered its hand but had not moved from its spot. It was watching him with small, dark eyes that seemed to hold no fear, no wonder, no confusion, just patience. It was strange. His voice came through the link, tight with something Vel did not recognize. "Vel, I need you to come back inside. There is something you need to see. I am in the middle of first contact observation. This is more important, trust me." Vel hesitated, never said things like that. In all their years of working together, she had never once interrupted a procedure. She was careful and methodical, and she respected protocol. He took one last look at the old human. The creature was still watching him. Then, impossibly, it smiled. A small curve of the lips, a slight crinkling around the eyes. The translation database identified it as a sign of friendliness. Or a sign of challenge. Vel turned and walked back into the ship. The door closed behind him, sealing out the morning light and the strange, smiling creature standing in the water. Inside was waiting for him at her console. Her face was pale, which was unusual for her species. Her hands were shaking slightly. "What is it?" Vel asked. Turned her screen toward him. It showed images and text and video files, thousands of them, all pulled from human information networks. "I have been studying their history," she said. "I thought it would be simple. I thought they would be like all the others." And his voice dropped to a whisper. "They are not like the others. They are not like anything we have ever found. Vel, I think we have made a terrible mistake coming here." Outside, the sun was rising over the mountains. Han walked slowly back toward his house. There would be much to do today, he knew. Many questions to answer, many people to talk to. But first, he would have breakfast. Whatever was happening in that silver ship, it could wait until after he had eaten. He was old, and he had learned long ago that some things were more important than others. The aliens had come to Earth, and an old farmer went home to make rice. Had not slept in 2 days. She had not eaten. She had done nothing but read and watch and learn about the species called humanity. And every hour her fear grew worse. She sat in the research room of the ship, surrounded by screens that showed images from Earth, videos of celebrations and funerals, recordings of speeches and songs, photographs of buildings and bombs, 1,000 years of human history compressed into files that she could access with a thought. Vel stood behind her, waiting. He had seen study hundreds of species before. She was always calm, always professional. She treated each new discovery like a puzzle to be solved. But now her hands were shaking and her voice was thin. Show me, Vel said. Took a breath, then she began. First, their biology, she said. She pulled up medical diagrams and scientific papers. They are carbon-based like most species. They breathe oxygen. They need water and food to survive. Standard organic life. This is not concerning, Vel said. Wait, zoomed in on a particular document. Their bodies can heal from damage that would kill us. Broken bones reform themselves. Torn flesh grows back together. They can lose limbs and continue to live. Some of them function for decades with organs that barely work. Regeneration is not unknown in the galaxy. This is not regeneration, this is something else. His voice cracked slightly. They simply refuse to die. Their bodies fight death with a determination that I have never seen in any other species. And when their bodies fail, they use machines and medicine to keep themselves alive. They replace organs. They inject chemicals. They will do anything to survive. Vel said nothing. He was beginning to understand why was afraid. But that is not the worst part, continued. She changed the screen to show a new set of images. Look at this. The images showed humans running, not away from something but towards something. They were chasing an animal across a dry, flat landscape. The animal was fast, much faster than the humans, but the humans did not stop. They ran and ran and ran under a burning sun for hours. What am I seeing? Vel asked. This is called persistence hunting, said. It is how humans used to catch food before they developed technology. The animal is faster than them. It can outrun them easily. But the humans do not need to be faster. They just need to keep going. They run until the animal is so tired that it cannot move anymore. Then they walk up to it and kill it. Vel felt something cold move through his body. His species had predators on their home world like all species did. But those predators were fast and deadly. They attacked quickly and then went away. The idea of being chased for hours until you collapsed from exhaustion, until your heart simply gave out from fear and fatigue. They are pursuit predators, Vel said quietly. Yes, and they have never lost that instinct. Even now, with all their technology, they still chase things. They call it sport. They call it fun. Pulled up more images. Humans running through forests. Humans climbing mountains. Humans swimming across oceans. They push their bodies past every limit again and again for no reason except that they want to. This is disturbing, Vel admitted, but it is not enough to. I am not finished. His voice was hard now. Look at their history. Look at what they do to each other. The screen changed again. This time it showed fire and smoke and destruction, cities burning, bodies lying in fields, machines designed for nothing except killing. They fight wars, Vel said. Many species fight wars. Many species fight wars to survive, corrected. They fight over food or territory or mates. When the fight is over, they stop. But humans, she shook her head. Humans fight for ideas, for beliefs, for revenge. They fight wars that last for generations. They kill millions of their own kind over words written in books. She pulled up a number on the screen. It was very large. This is the number of wars humans have recorded in their history, she said. We stopped counting at 15,000, and this is only what they wrote down. The true number is much higher. Vel stared at the number. He could not process it. His species had fought 3 wars in their entire history. Each one had been a tragedy that they remembered with shame. 15,000 was not a number. It was madness. It gets worse, said, and Vel almost laughed at the impossibility of that statement. In the last century alone, they fought 2 wars that involved almost every nation on their planet. The first one killed 17 million people. The second one killed 70 million. Pause to let that sink in. And during the Second War, they invented this. The screen showed a bright flash of light, and then a mushroom-shaped cloud rising into the sky. Below it, a city was burning. They call it a nuclear weapon, said. It destroys everything within several kilometers instantly. It poisons the land for years afterward. It causes sickness and death for generations. And they used it on their own people. On another group of humans, yes, they dropped 2 of these weapons on civilian cities. Hundreds of thousands of people died in moments. His voice was barely a whisper now. And then within decades, the humans who survived built new cities on the same ground. They had children. They made art. They forgot. Vel sat down heavily. His legs did not want to support him anymore. "How can any species survive like this?" he asked. "I do not know," said, "but they do more than survive. They thrive. Their population grows every year. Their technology improves every decade. They have gone from riding animals to walking on their moon in less than 100 years." She pulled up one final set of images. These showed humans smiling, laughing, playing with animals that had sharp teeth and claws, dogs and cats and horses, creatures that could kill a human easily. "They keep predators as pets," said. "They bond with them emotionally. They sleep in the same beds with animals that have killed humans before, and they love it." Vel looked at the images. A small human child was hugging a dog that was larger than she was. The dog's mouth was open, showing teeth that could tear flesh, but the child was laughing. "They also consume poison for pleasure," added. "Alcohol damages their brains and organs, but they drink it at celebrations. Caffeine disrupts their sleep patterns, but they consume it every morning. They eat plants that cause pain in their mouths because they enjoy the sensation." "Why?" "I do not know. Nothing about them makes sense. They are afraid of dying, but they do dangerous things for fun. They value peace, but they glorify warriors. They know that weapons are destructive, but they keep building bigger ones." Turned off the screens. The room was quiet. "Vel," she said slowly, "every other species we have found follows patterns. They are predictable. We can understand them and control them and integrate them into the Union. But humans," she shook her head, "I do not think we can predict what they will do. I do not think anyone can." Vel stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the human military forces gathering around the ship, vehicles with weapons, soldiers in armor, machines hovering in the air, watching. And beyond them, in the distance, he could see the old farmer from that morning. The man was sitting on a wooden porch, drinking something from a small cup. He did not seem concerned about the alien ship in his neighbor's field. He did not seem concerned about anything. "What do you recommend?" Vel asked. Was silent for a long moment. "We need to tell the council," she finally said. "We need to tell everyone. The galaxy needs to know what we have found here. And if they decide to eliminate the threat, if they send a fleet to destroy this world before the humans can reach the stars." Looked at him with tired, frightened eyes. "Then we had better hope they succeed on the first try," she said. "Because if even one human survives, if even one of them remembers what we did, they will never stop hunting us. They will chase us across the galaxy for generations until they find us. That is what they do." She pointed at the screen, now dark and empty. "That is what they have always done." Vel turned back to the window. The old farmer had finished his drink. He was walking back toward his field, his movements slow and peaceful. Just an old man, tending his crops. Just a member of the most terrifying species the galaxy had ever seen. Had worked as a communications officer for 40 years. He had sent thousands of messages across the stars, reports about new planets, updates on survey missions, requests for supplies, standard information that moved through the relay network and was forgotten within days. But this message was different. He stood at his station, his fingers hovering over the controls. The report was ready, had compiled everything she had found about the humans. Vel had added his own observations. Together, it formed a document that was longer and more detailed than any first contact report in Union history. It was also the most terrifying thing had ever read. "Send it," Vel said from behind him. Hesitated, Sir, once this message reaches the Council, there will be no taking it back. The entire galaxy will know about this species. Every government, every military, every scientific institution. They will all have access to this information. That is the point, Vel said. They need to know, everyone needs to know. Some will want to destroy them. They will argue that we should eliminate the humans before they become a threat. And others will argue that we should leave them alone and hope they destroy themselves. Vel shook his head. It does not matter what they decide. Our job is to report what we find. Let the Council make the choice. Looked at the screen one more time. The document was organized into sections: biology, psychology, history, military capability, risk assessment. Each section was worse than the one before. The final page contained Vel's personal recommendation, written in formal language but carrying a clear message. Do not engage. Do not provoke. Do not let them know we are afraid. Send it, Vel repeated. Press the button. The message left the ship at the speed of light. It traveled through space to the nearest relay station, then bounced to the next, then the next. Within hours, it would reach the inner council at the heart of the galaxy. Within days, it would spread to every corner of civilized space. The galaxy was about to learn about humanity. On Earth, none of this was known. The humans continued their lives as they always had. They went to work and came home. They ate meals and watched entertainment. They argued about politics and complained about the weather. The alien ship in Korea was big news, certainly, but there was other news too. There was always other news. Arrived at the military cordon on the third day after the landing. She was a journalist, one of hundreds who had traveled from around the world to report on the first contact event. But unlike the others, she was not interested in the ship itself. She was interested in the people. She found standing guard near the outer fence. He was young, maybe 25, with the calm face of someone who had been trained not to show emotion. His uniform was clean, and his weapon was held at rest. He looked like every other soldier on the perimeter. "Can I ask you some questions?" asked. Glanced at her press badge, then shrugged. "I cannot tell you anything classified." "I am not asking about classified information. I just want to know how you feel about all this." Feel seemed confused by the question. "I feel fine." "You are standing 50 meters from an alien spacecraft, the first evidence of intelligent life beyond Earth, and you feel fine." Thought about it for a moment. "I guess I expected something more. I do not know, dramatic. They just sit there in their ship. They do not talk to us. They do not do anything. It is actually kind of boring." Laughed despite herself. Boring. First contact with aliens is boring. The waiting is boring. If they attacked or if they came out to talk, that would be interesting. But this, he gestured toward the silent ship, this is just standing around. Are you not afraid of them? Looked at her with genuine surprise. Afraid? Why would I be afraid? Because they are aliens. Because they have technology we cannot understand. Because they traveled across space to reach us, which means they are far more advanced than we are. So, did not know how to respond to that. She had expected the soldiers to be nervous, to be hiding their fear behind their training, but seemed genuinely unconcerned. "They came to us," said, as if explaining something simple to a child. "They landed on our planet. They are the visitors here. If anyone should be afraid, it is them." Inside the ship, monitored the growing crowd of humans outside. There were thousands of them now. Soldiers and scientists and reporters and ordinary citizens. They had set up camps and brought food and created small cities of tents and vehicles around the landing site. "They are not dispersing," he reported to Vel. "If anything, more of them are arriving every hour." "They are curious," Vel said. "Curiosity is common in intelligent species." "This is not just curiosity. Look at them." Zoomed in on a group of humans near the fence. They were laughing and talking, taking pictures of the ship with small devices. Some of them were selling food and souvenirs. One had set up a sign that read "Welcome to Earth" in multiple languages. "They are not afraid," said. "They should be afraid. Any rational species would be afraid of unknown visitors from space, but they are treating this like a festival." "Humans are not rational," said from her station. She had not moved from her research console in 3 days. Her eyes were red and her voice was hoarse. "I have studied their psychology extensively. They do not respond to threats the way other species do. Fear makes them angry, danger makes them stubborn. The more you threaten them, the harder they fight." "Then what makes them surrender?" asked. Was quiet for a long moment. "Nothing," she finally said. "There is no example in their history of complete surrender. They lose wars, yes. They are conquered and occupied, but they never truly give up. They resist. They wait. They plan. And eventually they fight again." The message was spreading through the galaxy now. Relay stations passed it along automatically, following the protocols that had existed for thousands of years. Every major government received a copy, every military command, every scientific institution. And one by one, they began to read. On the planet, the military council reviewed the human war records and called an emergency session. On Prime, the merchant guilds calculated the risks of future trade with Earth and decided to avoid the system entirely. On the, philosophers debated whether the humans were a young species that could be guided or an ancient evil that had been sleeping until now. No one agreed on what to do, but everyone agreed on one thing: this was not a normal discovery. The relay network, usually filled with millions of messages about trade and politics and daily life, began to slow. Species that had been arguing for centuries suddenly stopped talking. Ongoing negotiations were postponed. Travel plans were canceled. The galaxy was not silent yet, but it was getting quieter. Back on Earth, finished her interview with and walked toward the press area. Her story would be simple. Soldiers at the alien landing site were bored, not scared. It was not the dramatic narrative that her editors wanted, but it was true. She passed Han on her way. The old farmer had become famous in the past few days as the first human to see the aliens. News crews followed him constantly, asking the same questions over and over. "What did they look like? What did they say? Were you afraid?" Han answered patiently every time. They looked different from humans. They did not say anything. And no, he was not afraid. "Why not?" a reporter asked. "They could have killed you." Han smiled. It was the same smile he had shown to Vel on that first morning. "I have lived a long life," he said. "I have seen many things. When I was young, I thought I knew what was dangerous and what was safe. Now I know that the world is full of surprises. Some things that look dangerous are harmless. Some things that look harmless are very dangerous." "Which one are the aliens?" Han looked toward the ship, still sitting silent in the field. "I do not know yet," he said, "but I think they are more afraid of us than we are of them." The reporter laughed, thinking it was a joke. Han did not laugh. He had seen the way the alien looked at him that first morning. He had seen something in those strange eyes that he recognized. It was the look of a creature that had just realized it was not the hunter. It was the look of prey. The message had been spreading for 2 weeks. It had reached every corner of the galaxy, every species that could read it, every government that had access to the relay network. And everywhere it went, the reaction was the same: fear. On the planet, the military council met in the Great Hall where their ancestors had planned conquests for 6,000 years. They were a proud species. They had built an empire that stretched across 300 star systems. They had defeated every enemy they had ever faced. Their generals wore medals made from the metals of conquered worlds. But today, they were not talking about conquest. General Mal stood before the council, the human documents displayed on the wall behind him. He had been reading them for 5 days, and each day he had understood less about how to respond. The obvious answer is a strike, he said. We send a fleet to the Sol system and destroy the humans before they develop faster-than-light travel, a simple solution to a simple problem. Is it simple? Asked Admiral Tor from the far end of the table. She was old, the oldest commander in the room, and she had fought in 2 wars against species that no longer existed. We have destroyed many worlds. We have eliminated many species. But we always had superior numbers, superior technology, superior position. What do we have here? Mal hesitated. We have all those things. The humans are primitive. They cannot even leave their own solar system. Yet, Admiral Tor leaned forward. They cannot leave their system yet. But according to this report, they have gone from primitive agriculture to nuclear weapons in 10,000 years. From stone tools to walking on their moon in even less time. What will they build in another 100 years? Another 1,000? That is why we must act now. And if we fail, Tor's voice was sharp. This report says they remember everything. They hold grudges for generations. They chase their prey until it collapses from exhaustion. If we attack them and do not destroy them completely, what happens then? Mal did not answer. He did not need to. Everyone in the room understood. We would have to destroy every human, Tor continued. Every single one, every colony they might build, every ship they might launch, every record they might keep. We would have to erase them so completely that not even a memory remains. She paused. Can we do that? Can we guarantee total destruction with no survivors? The council was silent. I did not think so, Tor said. So we do nothing. We recall our expansion fleets from anywhere near the Sol system. We close our borders to that sector. And we hope that they destroy themselves before they reach the stars. The vote was unanimous. On Prime, the merchant guilds were making their own calculations. They were traders, not warriors. They did not care about conquest or glory. They cared about profit. Guild Master Pell sat in her office reviewing the numbers. The Sol system had resources, minerals, water, labor. Under normal circumstances, it would be an excellent opportunity for trade. A primitive species could be exploited easily. Low costs, high returns. But these circumstances were not normal. The risk assessment is clear, said her advisor, a young named Sira. Any attempt to establish trade with the humans carries a 78% probability of eventual conflict, and based on their history, any conflict with humans has a 94% probability of escalating beyond control. And if we leave them alone, then we lose potential profit from that sector, but we also avoid the risk of. Sira hesitated. The report uses a phrase from human language. They call it a grudge match. It means a conflict that continues until one side is completely destroyed. Pell nodded slowly. They had survived for thousands of years by avoiding unnecessary risks. They did not fight wars they could not win. They did not make enemies they could not buy. And they did not trade with species that might one day chase them across the stars. Close all routes to the Sol sector, Pell ordered. Mark it as economically unviable. No vessel is to enter that region for any reason. For how long? Pell looked at the report again, at the images of human wars and weapons, at the numbers counting the dead in conflicts that had lasted for generations. Forever, she said, or until the humans are gone, whichever comes first. On the reaction was different. There were philosophers, not fighters. They had spent studying the nature of intelligence and consciousness. They believed that all thinking beings were connected, that violence was a disease that could be cured with understanding. They had been wrong before, but they had never been this wrong. Elder Dax sat in the Temple of Thought, surrounded by his students. The human documents floated in the air before them, translated into script. I do not understand, said one student, a young female named. If they are intelligent, why do they destroy so much? Why do they hurt each other so often? Because intelligence does not guarantee wisdom, Dax replied. The humans think and plan and create, but they also hate and fear and fight. They are capable of great beauty and great horror, sometimes at the same time. Can they be taught? Can we show them a better way? Dax was quiet for a long moment. He had asked himself the same question many times. They had uplifted species before, guiding them from violence to peace. It was their sacred duty. But humans? Look at their history, he finally said. They have had teachers among themselves, great thinkers who spoke of peace and love and understanding. And do you know what happened to them? Shook her head. Most of them were killed by other humans for speaking words that other humans did not want to hear. Dax's voice was heavy with sadness. The humans do not need teachers. They know what is right. They simply choose not to do it. Then they are evil. No, Dax closed his eyes. That would be simple. Evil can be fought. Evil can be defeated, but humans are not evil. They are complicated. They love their families and kill their enemies. They build hospitals and weapons. They write poetry and propaganda. They are everything at once all the time. He opened his eyes and looked at his students. We cannot teach them. We cannot fight them. We can only hope that they find their own way to wisdom before they find their way to us. The temple fell silent. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Species that had never spoken to each other suddenly found common ground in their fear of humanity. Old enemies put aside their conflicts. Ongoing wars were paused. Trade disputes were settled without argument. It was not peace exactly. It was more like the silence that falls before a storm. Everyone was watching the same horizon, waiting for the same thunder. The relay network, once buzzing with millions of messages, grew quieter every day. Governments stopped announcing their plans. Militaries stopped reporting their movements. Scientists stopped sharing their discoveries. No one wanted to draw attention to themselves. No one wanted to be the first species that the humans noticed when they finally reached the stars. Vel observed this from his ship on Earth. His crew monitored the galactic communications, watching the messages decrease hour by hour. What had been a river of information was becoming a trickle. They are afraid, said, stating the obvious. Yes, Vel agreed. What will they do? Will they attack? Will they try to destroy the humans? Vel thought about the council meetings and trade calculations and philosophical debates happening across the galaxy. He thought about the humans outside his ship, still gathering, still laughing, still treating the greatest event in their history like entertainment. No, he said finally, they will do nothing. They will hide and hope and pray, because the only thing more terrifying than the humans becoming a threat is the thought of making the humans angry. He turned away from the window. We are leaving, he announced. Prepare for departure. We are abandoning the mission, asked. There is nothing more to learn here. We have seen what we needed to see. Now we leave and we never come back. What about the humans? Should we not at least try to communicate with them, to establish some kind of relationship? Vel shook his head. The best thing we can do for the galaxy, he said, is let them forget we were ever here. The ship rose into the sky that night, silent and swift, and disappeared into the darkness between stars. The humans watched it go. They pointed and shouted and took pictures. And then, like everything else, they moved on. The galaxy held its breath. And waited. 1 month had passed since the aliens came to Earth. 1 month since the silver ship landed in a rice field in Korea. 1 month since humanity learned that they were not alone in the universe. And now, life had returned to normal. Stood at her desk in the observatory, staring at the same screen she had watched every night since the ship left. The radio telescope scanned the sky constantly, searching for signals, searching for any sign that the visitors might return. There was nothing. You need to sleep, said her colleague, a man named who had worked at the observatory for 20 years. You have been here for 18 hours. I cannot sleep, They are out there somewhere, I know they are, and they left without saying anything. Sighed, he had heard this many times in the past month. Everyone had theories about why the aliens had come and gone so quickly. Some said it was a test. Some said they were scouts for an invasion. Some said they were disappointed in what they found. No one knew the truth. The government says they will return, offered. They are preparing diplomatic protocols, setting up communication arrays, building new facilities to welcome them. The government does not know anything. Nobody does, rubbed her eyes. They were here for 2 weeks, and then they just left, no explanation, no message, nothing. She thought about the single communication that had been transmitted from the ship before it departed. A short message, sent directly to world leaders and broadcast on all frequencies. You are not ready, neither are we. That was all. 8 words that raised more questions than they answered. Turned back to her screens. The stars stared back at her, silent and cold. What did they see? She whispered. What did they learn that made them leave? Seoul was at her desk, writing her final article about the alien landing. Her editor had told her to move on. The story was over. The public was losing interest. There were other things to report on now. Politics and sports and entertainment and all the ordinary concerns of ordinary life. But could not stop thinking about it. She had interviewed hundreds of people in the past month. Scientists and soldiers and politicians and ordinary citizens. She had asked them all the same question. What do you think the aliens wanted? The answers were always different, but they shared one thing in common. Everyone assumed that the humans were the less important party. Everyone assumed that the aliens had come for some purpose of their own, and that humanity was just an object to be studied or judged. No one considered the possibility that the aliens might have been afraid. Except Han had gone back to interview the old farmer 3 times. Each time he said the same thing. The aliens looked at him like a mouse looks at a cat, not with curiosity, with caution. She had not included that in any of her articles. It sounded too strange, too arrogant, too human. But she could not forget it. Had been reassigned to a new post in a quiet province near the mountains. The excitement of the alien landing was behind him now, and he was back to normal duties. Patrols and training and the endless paperwork of military life. He did not think about the aliens much anymore. They had been interesting while they lasted, but they were gone now. There were other things to focus on: his career, his family, his future. Sometimes, late at night, he wondered if they would come back. And sometimes, in those quiet moments, he felt something that might have been disappointment. He had wanted to see more, to learn more, to understand who these visitors were and what they could teach humanity, but they had left before any real contact could be made. It felt like an opportunity missed. He did not know that the aliens had left precisely because they were afraid of what might happen if they stayed. He did not know that across the galaxy, entire civilizations were holding their breath, hoping that humans would never build a starship. He did not know that his species had become the most feared thing in the known universe. He just knew that life went on, and he had work to do. Across the galaxy, the silence continued. The military had recalled its expansion fleets. The merchants had closed their trade routes. The philosophers had sealed their temples and prayed for wisdom. Every species capable of receiving the message had made the same choice: stay away from Earth, stay hidden, stay silent. The relay network, once filled with the chatter of 1,000 civilizations, had become a whisper. Messages were short and careful, nothing provocative, nothing that might attract attention. And everyone watched the Sol system. Every telescope, every sensor, every probe that could be safely hidden at a distance. They watched and waited, looking for signs that humanity was reaching outward. So far, there was nothing to worry about. The humans were still primitive, still trapped on their single planet, still fighting among themselves over resources and beliefs and land. but everyone knew it would not last forever. One day, the humans would build faster-than-light engines. One day, they would leave their solar system. One day, they would find the other civilizations hiding in the darkness. And on that day, everything would change. The galaxy could only hope that by then, humanity would have learned to be peaceful, that they would have their violence and their anger and their endless, terrifying persistence. But no one really believed that would happen. Because they had read the reports, they had seen the history, they had learned the truth about the species called humanity. Humans did not change. They adapted. They evolved. They became more efficient at whatever they chose to do, and what they had always chosen to do more than anything else was survive. At any cost, by any means, against any enemy. Forever. In the village in Korea, Han sat on his porch as the sun went down. His granddaughter, a small girl named, sat beside him. She was 6 years old, and she had been asking questions all day. "Grandfather, why did the aliens leave?" Hans smiled and sipped his tea. "I do not know, little one." "Were they scared of us?" He thought about the question for a long time. He thought about the alien he had seen that first morning, the way it had looked at him, the way it had turned and walked back into its ship. "Maybe," he said. "But we did not do anything to them. We did not hurt them." "No, we did not." "Then why would they be scared?" Hans set down his tea and looked at the stars. They were coming out now, one by one, dots of light in the darkening sky. Somewhere up there the aliens were watching. He was sure of it. He said slowly, "Do you know why the rabbit runs from the fox?" "Because the fox will eat it." "Yes, but the fox does not have to chase the rabbit first. Sometimes the rabbit runs just because it sees the fox, just because it knows what the fox is." Thought about this. So the aliens ran because they know what we are. Maybe, Hans smiled again, but there was something sad in it. Or maybe they ran because they looked at us and saw themselves. They saw what they might have become if things had been different, and that scared them most of all. He put his arm around his granddaughter and pulled her close. "Grandfather." "Yes." "Will they ever come back?" Han looked at the stars for a long time before answering. He thought about all the things he had seen in his life, the wars and the peace, the destruction and the rebuilding, the endless cycle of human history repeating over and over, each time a little different but always the same. "Maybe," he said finally, "but I think they were not looking for anything here. I think they were running from something, and when they looked at us," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "I think they realized we might be worse." Did not understand. She was too young to understand. But she felt her grandfather's arm around her, warm and safe, and she decided that was enough. They sat together in silence, watching the stars appear one by one. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was watching back. Waiting. Hopping. Fearing. And humanity, beautiful and terrible and utterly unaware, went on living as they always had, working and fighting and loving and dying, building and destroying, reaching for the stars without knowing that the stars were already afraid. The day the aliens found Earth, absolute silence fell across the galaxy. And the humans never even noticed.